Hey everybody, I'm out here walking today, and this week I'm not getting weathered on, so I'm really happy. Last week it was the rain, the week before it was the snow, and today it's a pretty nice day even though it's overcast. So I'm here walking in Idaho. It's really about in the 50s, so it's pretty nice weather, and I walked out about 2 miles and to do the video, and then I'm going to walk about 2 miles back home. And what I'm talking to you today about is telling your story. So tell your COVID story, your story from the pandemic. What gave me the idea for that is this is Women's History Month, and the theme for Women's History Month is celebrate your story. Really, we are all part of history right now. I know you get told that every day, like you're part of history and this is history making and people are going to be studying this for years, but really people are going to be studying this for years. So as part of the pandemic, we studied the 1918 pandemic and past pandemics and how things were handled. And so that's how we're studying this pandemic as well. So every day, somebody is studying the pandemic and learning about it. And your story is going to help people understand in the future what happened and maybe how to address issues in the future. The pandemic infected every aspect of life. In public health, we call that social determinants of health. So it means that it wasn't just this tiny little virus that made everybody go home, but it was all the things associated with that. There are so many things that affect your health and impact your health and your life. And it's not just your actual physical health. So it can be your housing, your availability for food, your relationships, your social network, your work, all kinds of different things impact your health, your socioeconomic status, inflation, food scarcity, food availability, toilet paper, as we learned during the pandemic, was a big issue. So all of those things impact your health. And it's really important that you share your COVID story for posterity, for people to learn about, but also for yourself. Because one of the things I learned is that when you share your story, it's actually really very healing for you. And I think most people know that. And so when you talk about your problems to people, even if it's to an empty chair or just somebody listening on the other end of a phone or the internet or whatever, you're sharing something and you're releasing that hold on you. So you're releasing it. When you talk about it, you start understanding more about yourself. So I'm going to share my COVID story with you, and I'm going to encourage you to please share your COVID story. Even if it's with a stranger, I would love to see a bunch of videos on the internet where people share their COVID stories, especially as part of Women's History Month, or even as part of your own healing, because it's really important that. So here's my COVID story. February 2020, my now ex came home and told me that I had to move out because he was openly dating someone else, and she was going to move into my house. So the house was in his name, so I had to move out. Fortunately, COVID happened nearly just not even a month later. And so I had to stay in the house because we had stay-at-home orders in Kansas City, which is where I lived. I lived in the Kansas City metro at the time. I had a few months to get my affairs in order. And after I was working for a company that was educational related. So because it was education related, I didn't have any kind of income. And if it wasn't for COVID, I probably would have been in some really serious circumstances. But I had already been making plans because I saw something was coming. I had come to Boise a few months before for a family member's wedding, and so I was checking the city out to see if it was someplace I'd want to live. I thought it was beautiful and I loved it here, and the people seemed friendly, and I liked the layout of the city, and it was kind of calming and relaxing. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna go there if I ever have to. And people weren't moving, and there was really limited housing here, and I was looking for, I don't know, like a month or two for a place to live. I am kind of this big believer that if something's meant to happen for you, it will. And so I was kind of like, okay, maybe I'm just not meant to go there and this is going to happen. And so finally, where I'm living now, and it was available, and then I had a place to live and I had a date to move in. It was sight unseen because you couldn't tour anything because of COVID. So you just basically had to take their word for it. I started shipping, like planning to ship my stuff, packing up my things, because I knew I packed up my stuff. I couldn't afford to take my furniture because it's really expensive to move your furniture. I didn't have very much money because, like I said, I didn't have a job. Out here with my little dog and my little job and very, very little savings and less than $2,500. And sight unseen, I had 2 suitcases and about 8 boxes that I had shipped ahead of time. I'm not talking like huge boxes. I'm talking smaller boxes that I could carry. I had ordered a bed in a box from Amazon. Then after a few months, I was running out of money. Unfortunately, there were a lot of grants available because of COVID. And so I was able to receive some of that money to help me basically have a place to live. The other thing I should mention is when I got here, I didn't have any dishes. I didn't have a car. I didn't have a job. I really had like the clothes on my back and a few things, and that was it. And I was so fortunate that people were kind to me and helped me out and were there for me. Like the people of Idaho are amazing. And I can't say enough good things about the people in Boise because they've been truly amazing to me. So fast forward a few months, I didn't have any furniture for several months because I was like in denial. And so finally I got some furniture and I just said, okay, I live here now. You know, it's how it is. With the second COVID like payout check from the government, I started a business. And my business had already been a blog in Kansas City, so it was already reported as a business. But the reason is because if you wrote a blog in Missouri, you had to report it as a business. And even though I didn't make very much money off of it, I still had to report it. Well, I decided to turn it into an LLC and started How Healthcare Works. A few months later, so I thought, okay, and then I started working again for the same education company. And I'm like, okay, things are going good. I'm good, all right. Bought a car. A few months later, I started to get like a bunch of health checks. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to the doctor. I'm gonna get all my healthcare checked out. I found out I had a tumor in my right breast, so I had to have a breast biopsy. When you're super stressed, you're not always the nicest person, but you know, people need to cut you some slack, which they didn't do for me. And so it was really hard and people weren't helping me. So I had this friend that I barely knew him. He'd only known me a few weeks and he sat by my side while I found out my results of my breast biopsy. And so that was super cool of him. And it turned out to be negative, thankfully. I also was part of a clinical trial for AstraZeneca. I participated in that. A few months later, I contracted COVID in January 2022. 2022, yeah, I think it was. Not the most fun of my life. Laid there and I was like, okay, this is just getting to be too much. I just can't take it too much longer. And I was like, what is this all about? I was by myself for like 6 weeks with my little dog watching over me. I was running out of food. I didn't have hardly anything. And just, I always say, like, people say, how are you making it? And I'm like, by the grace of God. A few months later, I was back to work. I wrote a book. I wrote 2 books, actually. I wrote Bragging About You. And I also wrote a book called Don't Only Settle for Happiness during that time. And it's just like, people are like, how are you making it? And I just keep saying, by the grace of God, because all of these other things happened to me in my life, I knew how to survive and how to make it. I just want to tell you, like, every day I am just baffled myself at how well things have gone. Honestly, I'm so impressed with myself because of how much I've been through and how much I've survived and how much I've done. And every single day, I'm so grateful that I'm here on this planet and I'm alive, and we all should be, because we really went through a lot, but we also made it through a lot. I really do believe that good things are coming for everyone. So stay safe, stay healthy, and take care. Bye-bye.